There you go.
Welcome, everybody, to the Level3Studios podcast. This is Erik Schultek, and I am not in Level3Studios today. I am here at Madtownmixstudios with Matt LaPlant. Matt, thank you, buddy. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
Matt's a great new friend of ours that we recently met when he was doing some work for David Ellefson band that was here not too long ago on a live stream. But big name in the business, been all over, and he's got a lot of fun stories to share. So I'm happy to be here speaking with him in front of his beautiful SSL board. What a perfect backdrop. So
cool.
So yeah, welcome to the frozen tundra of Wisconsin, being from Florida. So.
I'm from Miami originally, and a lot of people ask me how I ended up here, and I just tell them, like, took a wrong turn on 95. I got lost really long ago. I saw some snow. Now I'm here.
Yeah. So. Well, we're glad you're here, and we're going to kind of go through some of the awesome and actually really interesting and unique projects that Matt's been a part of and still working on. But I wanted to get your take on, like, you know, everyone kind of has what draws them to audio, or, you know, what is it that so makes them so passionate about it? What is it, like, when did you first get interested in?
I know, like, exactly the day that my life changed. It's like, it's some semi-embarrassing depending on what side of music you listen to. And I don't know, I'll own it. But, like, so I saw MTV. I was like 6 years old. And the reason I saw MTV was because they had this show called Remote Control.
Oh, I remember that show.
And they were people that were sitting in, like, chairs, and then they would, like, flip up into the wall, and they would show that commercial on Nickelodeon, which is like the kids. And so I saw that on Nickelodeon. I was like, I always wanted to see that show. And then I found the channel that it was on, and that was MTV. And so at six years old, I'm watching MTV, and then I saw Def Leppard. And I was like, after I saw Def Leppard, I think it was either Pour Some Sugar on Me or Armageddon It. And I was like, I want to be a rock star when I grow up. I told that to my mom.
Right. And how'd she take that?
She was like, that's not a career. That's not a job. And I was like, okay, so then I want to be a pyrotechnician. I don't know how at 6 years old I knew about pyrotechnicians, but
that's pretty awesome.
I decided I wanted to do that. And then I decided I wanted to be involved in music in any way, shape, or form, and behind the scenes, in front of the scenes. I mean, I did play guitar for a long time, and, you know, was in bands and stuff like that. And definitely like all sides of it and like performing. But I just knew I wanted to be in music. And I even have like every single solitary, what do you want to be when you grow up, like, paper I wrote ever in school.
Wow, that's cool.
Has always been record producer, musician, rock star. I mean, mostly record producer. So essentially, I've picked out what I wanted to be when I was like 6 years old, and I've only made steps to do what I want to do, like, my whole life. And I don't have any. There's never been any, like, figuring out what I want to do.
Yeah, that's interesting. You know, a lot of people really still don't even know what they want to do.
Right. Not saying, you know, you never know. It could be, you know, maybe I picked the wrong path, you know, but this is what I've wanted to do. So I just kind of went that way. So
I bet you I have a few moments, not very many, but I have a few good moments where, you know, if I could go back and pinch myself when I was a kid, you know, then I'd be like, wow, I would get to work with this person or this person or this person, you know, and you've done quite a lot of that.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, that's the thing is, like, especially like this year, we just, you know, I just did a project with Ellefson and David Ellefson's band and Thom, and which was a covers record, and the names that I was getting from that in my inbox and people that I was communicating with are names that like my cassette collection from like, you know, the
Totally.
mid to late 80s, like
Yeah.
all of them are in there. Ministry and like
Right.
Anthrax and like all these people, and it's, you know, you got to play it cool, and you can't be
Can't
like
fanboy out.
Yeah, you can't have that moment, because when you do, it completely changes the relationship. But you know, at some point you gotta I have those moments where I'm like, wow, like
Especially
I
when you
wanted
hear
to
it
do
come
this.
together,
Yeah,
right? Like-
yeah, I wanted to do this, and I'm doing this. Like I'm working with
Yeah,
these
man,
people.
that's awesome.
You know?
I'm stoked for you.
So no, that's incredible, and it was a great opportunity.
Yeah,
and
you
I'm-
have like names like Charlie Benante and
Yeah.
Bumblefoot sending you emails with tracks.
yeah,
And
exactly.
then just hearing some of just like,
Dave Lombardo.
right. I mean, come on.
I mean, Al Jurgensen. I mean,
Right.
I'm a huge Ministry fan.
Oh,
And
man, that must have made your day.
Yeah. I mean, but I just love music in general. And I love like really all sides of music. Like I really like a lot of genres. And it's almost to the point where, when I talk to people, I have to screen myself off and just talk, because most people aren't as varied. Like I love jazz as much as I love death metal.
Yep.
And I like EDM just as much as I like I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you can't be pigeonholed in this job to a certain genre, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
I love it all. Like
yeah,
I
so
really
that's good.
like, you know, I really try to like
if you hated it, it would suck every day.
right.
You know.
But yeah. So
So starting from 6, getting your interest, and then you're in Florida.
right.
So most of what I try to cater to our listeners are up and comers. Like how did that person get there? What did they do to launch their career?
Yeah, I mean,
So you're going to have a lot of good insight into how you got started, even though every situation is different. But how did you put yourself out there in Florida and start getting your first?
So essentially, I just tried to like get myself in the room. Like my biggest advice to people that are starting out is like, you got to get in the room, and you just find a way. So like, for instance, I mean, there's a great example. I have a friend that he was a vocal producer on like the last Linkin Park record, and did like Lil Nas X,
sweet.
And all that. And his story was like, there's this big studio in Miami, and he would go down there to play guitar on somebody's record, and then he would like forget his guitar so that he would have to go back the next day and pick it up. And I've done the same thing. Like I just would find a way to like, I did a lot of tech work, starting out. Like, I went to the University of Miami, which has a program that is equally a music degree and an electronics and computer science degree.
Oh, cool.
And so it's created a lot of people who come from the tech side of things. And then a lot of those people have transferred over into the recording side of things. And so I was doing tech. I worked for a company that in the early stages of Pro Tools, where I was maintaining Pro Tools systems for everyone from like Desmond Child to Mutt Lange to Sting to Ozzy to Gloria Estefan, Barry Gibb. I worked for Barry Gibb for a number of years. The way I got that into that was kind of through those initial meetings, doing tech for him. And so,
well, obviously doing a good job while you're doing it.
Yeah, hopefully you do a good job and like you make a good impression.
Those are big names.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy in the beginning, and like, you know, but you just like, I just kept on trying to get myself in the room. And once you're in there, you know, like I always would try to find something that I could add to the situation.
Okay.
So without trying to like be annoying or overtake a situation, or most importantly, when there were people like a producer or an engineer and I was like a second or assistant, you don't want to like overrule any of those guys, because in your eagerness to like stay in the room, but I would find like little things I could do to make an impression, and then I would get asked to stay, and then I'm there.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, one of the coolest situations. One of the first records I worked on was the Lil Jon record, the Kings of Crunk.
Okay.
So I was an assistant on that.
Sweet.
And I ended up becoming more than the assistant because the guy who was the engineer in the middle of the project, he had enough and he left. So I call it getting fired upwards.
I like that. That's a good expression. Getting fired upwards. So you were there and you knew some of the backstory. So rather than have someone
right, and on top of that, like I knew how to wire up the studio. I knew where everything was going in the studio, and they needed somebody, and so I was in the room for that. Like, and I got to stay, and I was in the room when the engineer was like, I don't want to, like he kind of just like disappeared, to be honest. And then that was it. And then all of a sudden, oh, Matt, you're doing it now. So okay, so
good thing you were prepared, I guess, right?
Right, yeah. Well, for whatever at the time, I mean, I definitely made mistakes, and I definitely didn't know 100% what I was doing all the time. But you just kind of like
when you're on that spot though, and you're like, even if it's something like patching something or wiring something,
right?
Like, you want to get it right and not waste time and not
totally
not screw it up. I mean, have a good vocal take, and then oh shit, I didn't record that.
Yeah.
One of those, but
yeah.
I mean, so you started working with some big names right away. I mean,
yeah, the first record so basically going back a little bit backwards in time, I grew up in Miami, and then we moved to like the west coast of Florida, to this very small town that didn't have any kind of scene. There was a complete culture shock for me.
Right.
And I had, basically my high school years spent not being in a very entertaining place. And I really refined that to like doing a lot of playing guitar and like really working on that part of things. So when I came back to Miami for college. I went to the University of Miami, and I joined a band, and the band that I was in, we had this great singer guy, and he was a songwriter, and he was awesome, and we were doing kind of like punk ska music. And to be honest, the band I had in high school wasn't that. It was like Korn. Like we were trying to be like some sort of Korn, rap rock thing.
Yeah, we were at that time.
Which that
was the biggest thing. That was,
but I had also fallen in love with No Effects and like Operation Ivy and Rancid especially. And so I knew like a little bit about the ska thing. So when I came down there and this band, and they were awesome and they sounded like great songs and stuff. So I joined that band. Cool. The first thing that happened, like within weeks of joining that band, is they got picked to like record with Eddie Kramer, who recorded Jimi Hendrix and like Led Zeppelin and all this stuff. And the first time I was ever in the studio was recording guitar was with the guy who recorded Jimi Hendrix, and I was terrible. And that's a large part of why I was like, I'm not going to do this guitar thing for a living, because I'm not there. But
that's
like,
impressive.
Yeah, but it was cool. It was awesome, and it was like a great, it was a great first experience, and it was great like learning from him seeing him do that in the studio and everything like that. And the singer from the band, his name's Oscar. He's gone on to become more of a movie star and more known as like a movie star than a singer. But he also does sing, and he was in Star Wars, and he's going to be in Metal Gear and all that.
Sweet.
And, so he's been in a lot of movies and stuff like that. He goes by Oscar Isaac is his name. So that was a big turning point. And again, I got myself in the room, that was kind of the thing. And then from there, I got into other bands, and then in the scene, some of the bands that we played with wanted to work with me for recording. So I would record the bands and stuff like that. And that got me into into more studios and so on and so forth. And, it's just a matter of growing.
Yeah, I don't think it's ever like a immediate shot up, right? I mean, it's a slow. I mean, it's a roll. Yeah. You gather all that experience and those connections and the time, and
right?
Experience, stuff like that.
And I just worked worked constantly. Like coming up, like I didn't take weekends, and like I would work downtown, like down in Miami. All the studios are kind of in like North Miami Beach area.
Okay.
And the place where I was doing Pro Tools tech work for, that was in North Miami Beach. So I would be down there, and then I was going to these rooms anyways.
Right.
So I would kind of trade them for studio time, or I would just go get in the door and then work there after. So I'd finish my job at 7, and then I'd stay till 2 a.m. at a studio, helping out,
very cool.
Soldering cables or doing whatever, or assisting on sessions or so on and so forth. So, like just building those connections,
sure.
It all pays off. And then I had the opportunity to run a studio that was connected to a label called Beeler Brothers Records, which was owned by Jason Beeler and Aaron Beeler. And Jason had been in a band called Saigon Kick, which is like kind of a Miami. It's like one of the bands that like they did it, like they made it. And he had produced Nonpoint and signed them to his label, and there was like a new label that they were creating.
Cool.
And they entrusted me with the studio, and I ended up running the studio for 8 years and did a lot of the records for the bands that were on that label. Not necessarily out of anything other than I was the one that was there.
Well, it seems to be like that was the time too when there was a lot of Florida bands like really popping up and making it too.
Yeah.
Like, especially like in that genre.
Yeah. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, like my band, I think we played the Blinking Under the band that, with Oscar, we played, I think, Dashboard Confessional's first show.
Oh, really?
We played like The Agency, which is like one half of Dashboard Confessional's last show, and then I think we played the Dashboard's first show, and then like we played with Newfound Glory. I mean, there was a huge scene of artists that made it. Nonpoint, right. There's a ton of bands that kind of made it out of that scene at that time, and yeah, I got to be kind of part of that too.
That's pretty badass. So. Yeah, no, that was a huge scene, especially at that time. I mean, right. I guess kind of get lucky with being in the right place at the right time, but
yeah, Poison the Well, like stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, all that early
Poison
emo stuff.
The Well. God, I remember the guys in Shadows Fall talking about Poison the Well.
Yeah,
like I think they maybe did a lot of coastal Eastern U.S. tours with them.
Right. No, that's cool.
So then after that, I mean, I know that you're also, you worked as an audio teacher.
Yes.
Right. You worked at the Madison Media Institute, and that's a whole nother animal, right? Teaching somebody audio.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't really teach someone work ethic and, come here after your job and work until 2 a.m.
Right.
So
that's tough. Yeah. That's the part that you can't really teach.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the part that when teaching, one of the things, I mean, I love talking about audio. I love talking about audio, and I love doing that kind of stuff. So that's easy for me. That's like, what I see is that there's a level of people who like talking about it, and then there's a level of people who like doing it.
Yeah.
And with the education thing, the student to some extent has to bring that work ethic.
Right, for sure.
And that becomes the kind of like, the great thing about audio is there's so many things you can do with audio, and it's not just being in a recording studio. And there are so many niches within it, and there's so many awesome jobs and things like that. Like AV installing AV. I did some of that like as part of my tech kind of work for Pro Tools and stuff. Like we did like, I did lighting systems and stuff like that at like Steven Tyler's house, and like,
oh really?
Yeah. And like and Joey Kramer's and like some of these people, like I installed like wiring, I wrote the plans for the wiring for some of their houses.
So for all of their indoor outdoor speakers, home theaters, whatever setups, all that stuff.
And that like that's an awesome job. That's cool. It wasn't what I wanted to do ultimately, but it's something that's cool. So what I try to get the students to understand, I've always tried to get the students to understand, like there's more to this than just this one thing. And like, you know, like sometimes it's like making beats. Like everybody wants to make beats, and that's what they want to do. And like that's cool, but there's a huge spectrum. Like you could be a vocal producer, you could be a top line writer, you could be a lyricist, you could be the person that's like the personal assistant that's like making sure all the hard drives exist. Like there's so many jobs within even just that one, like producing for a high, like, you know, if you're looking at like the highest of the high, like Kendrick Lamar or something like that, like there's people that he's got to have to do all these kinds of things. And those are viable.
So here's a question for you then. So it's not necessarily always the path of maybe going to school and getting something for that. You also have to have that practical work experience
exactly
too, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Because I hear that all the time too about like, you know, music schools and especially in audio, that, I mean, yeah, you're going to go spend a lot of money and, you know, you're going to get to work on boards like this,
right,
and stuff like that. But, you know, where do you go from there?
Right.
Like if you don't have those gigs lined up or those.
For me, what was interesting and why I went to the University of Miami in the music engineering program. Why I went there as opposed to something like Full Sail or you know anywhere else was what they were a huge proponent of. There were two things. One, it wasn't that I learned how to use the board. I like literally learned how to like build the board. Like I had a class where we had to build a mic preamp, an EQ, and a compressor. And so
don't get me wrong, that's badass.
So like for instance, when I own, like now that I own this, I tech this board.
Right.
Like I'm fixing this board. I'm not necessarily always calling somebody to help me fix it. You know, sometimes I definitely do for sure. But that was one of the benefits. And you don't necessarily learn that unless you learn that. You know what I mean? Like in school.
There's definitely for sure.
And then the other side of that school is that you're part of the music program. So I played jazz guitar in their music program. And I learned so many things about music and so many things like in musicology. And like I do this thing with bands sometimes, or sometimes a lot of times with assistants and things like that, where it's like you hear a song and then like I'll tell you where this and this is all stolen from, like, and it all references this and you know it's all coming from some place bigger, and like hearing that bigger picture, so that when I'm producing bands, I'm always trying to be like, let's throw this thing in here, let's do this, let's try this. That's way out of the genre, like it's not in the metal genre. Let's like not rip it off, but like let's like use this as like an idea. You know, this thing that Prince did, like let's put that in this metal song because you know it's going to sound interesting and different than the way Prince implemented it.
Right.
So you know, keeping those kinds of and that was something that I learned in school, especially in like musicology class, which I actually really loved. Musicology. A lot of the kids that I went to school with didn't, but I found a huge amount of like cross use in the musicology.
Like the concept would be the same across everything, and I think that you're just getting into it that much deeper. And I really like the part you're talking about, you know, getting in and really knowing your instrument, this board.
Yeah.
You know, like that's what you do. It's what you do every day, and it's like you should, you know the ins and outs of it. And
because it'll go down and like stuff will go wrong, and you know being able to fix it, that's super important to me. So I really like that. That's part of why the school thing for me was important. But you know now there's many ways to skin the cat,
right?
So
yeah, like a lot of kids, I mean, or some, it's just so affordable to be totally in the box these days, right?
Yeah.
With certain things, and then you know, maybe they're intimidated by analog gear. I mean, you see all the knobs, you're like, oh my God, how do I even route this thing, you know?
Right.
So there's that. But I guess what I'm trying to get to is like, it all comes from the same concept at the core of it, right?
Right.
Like, what are you trying to do? Like, you don't have to always go through a compressor to EQ. You can sometimes go through EQ to a compressor, you know, stuff like that.
And I think also like the concept of interesting stuff happens when you abuse the technology, when you find the edge of the technology.
Right.
And that can be kind of the downside of like the computer in that the computer can almost do everything. So there's less limitations. Whereas in analog, there are finite limitations. Like when you turn the knob up too much and it goes into the red and it gets distortion, you got that distortion. Like, what are you going to do with it now?
Right.
Like, you know, so finding that edge is, to me, what's interesting, and like exploiting that is what's interesting and creative. And I think some of that limitation is good. At the same time, I love working in the box and like working in a modern way.
Right.
And using the combination of the two, because I am definitely not like an analog purist in any way, shape, or form. In fact, I like, you know, distorting things digitally and like making things, you're not supposed to go into the red. You know, maybe you're not, but I don't care. Like maybe it sounds cool.
Yeah.
Like it's better to sound cool than it is to sound good sometimes, you know,
like those two distressors I'm looking at behind you.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you push those things and they have a very unique analog sound.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, they're great for that. And so, yeah, that's, you know, that's another thing. Yeah.
So how did you get to teaching up here then? So
the story is we moved up here, and I had been running Beeler Brothers for a long time.
For the 8 years you were saying?
Yeah. And it was definitely time for me to move on, I felt like. So I had worked on with my assistant at the studio. His name was Steve or Steven. And we, like, he had this song and we worked on this song, and it became this huge like dubstep thing. And I got really into dubstep and EDM, mainly because I was working with the Beelers. I was working with a band called Skindred, and Skindred's always kind of had this drum and bass jungle kind of programming kind of vibe to what they do. And one of their tour managers was like, you know, like the Skindred guys had introduced me to like Pendulum, which was this kind of new drum and bass, newish sounding drum and bass kind of vibe at the time. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. This is awesome. And that guy was like, yeah, well, I know you like Pendulum, but he was like, have you heard dubstep? And I was like, what's that? And at the time, Skrillex hadn't done dubstep yet. There was no Skrillex, right? So I was listening to like, you know, 12th Plant Rusko, like all these kind of like early dubstep people. And I was like, this is amazing. This is awesome. So I wanted to put dubstep in everything. And like, there are a lot of rock bands that I worked with that was like, all right, what are we doing for the bridge? Dubstep. We're doing dubstep for the bridge. I thought the rock dubstep crossover thing was going to be like the biggest thing ever. And like, I did a couple of projects like that. We even had Skrillex. We contacted Skrillex to program on one of them. Okay. And he offered to do it, but and it wasn't very expensive. I'm not going to say how much it was, but this was before Scary Monsters. Okay. And you know, before he really got big, but they got a little freaked out by the number and didn't do it. I wish we had done it, obviously, but I got obsessed with dubstep and everything. And so I had an assistant that was particularly good at making dubstep and like making those sounds and like doing that stuff. And so we had this song and we put it out, and it did really, really well. He went to LA. He's still an artist. His name is Steven. He's just Steven. And the song that I'm referencing is called Bullet Train. Just blew up. So he went to LA.
Great.
The girl who sang it, Joni, went to New York. And then I went to Madison, Wisconsin.
What a departure.
Yeah, I was like, where can I go that is
furthest,
that is way more uncomfortable to be in than Miami?
So, well, hey, there's that affordability factor, which is kind of nice too sometimes, right?
So I came up here and then I was trying to get into the music. I was trying to get into the music scene here, and there was a school, and I met a guy.
What year is this, Matt?
This was 2012.
Okay.
2004, might have been 2014 when I met. I came here 2012, 13.
Okay.
2000. I was touring too. I would tour, did live stuff for a couple of years. So I was not here very much when I moved here. And then when I came, then I finally got my in. There was a guy named Chris Taylor that was teaching and running MMI, and I kind of talked to him about he kind of found out some of the stuff I had worked on.
Okay.
And then he was like, "Oh, you should teach." And so I got to teach, and then I was teaching at the school, which was awesome, and I really enjoyed it. And I met a lot of kids that I am still working with. I've got a new I'm scoring a TV show, an animated TV show that's coming up. And I've got one of the students I've brought on as to help with the music scoring additionally.
Great.
Another one of the students I taught is helping with the post-production stuff. And that guy also does a lot of the hip hop stuff that's comes out of the studio, because that's kind of the side he's really into hip hop and stuff like that. I have pretty much the vast majority of the best students I've kept in contact with, and I keep on giving them gigs and trying to get them on things and trying to include them and stuff like that. So,
very cool.
It's been amazing for that, because you get access to these people who are clearly talented.
Mm-hmm.
And it's tough in Madison. It is tough because the music community and the music, there's a limit to how much access you have to the people that are really doing it,
right?
For a living,
right?
There's not in Miami at the time when I was coming out of school. It was Barry Gibb had a huge amount of people that they would that he would hire in from the schools and build up. The Stefans had a huge empire of things, from TV shows that they were doing to all the artists that they had. So they were in the Julio Iglesias and all of his his sons and stuff like that were doing stuff. And then Desmond Child was also there at that time. And so there were definitely these pockets of people that were anchoring Miami as a scene. Up here it's a little different now. Smart Studios is gone, and stuff like that. So anyway.
I don't know if Butch Vig still lives here or not. I think he
lives in LA.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah. It's quite the journey, but this place in particular and what you're involved with now is pretty multifaceted, right? We were talking about all, Matt's responsible for, not only all the stuff he's doing creatively with, mixing and stuff, but you're very familiar with live sound and all this other aspects to this complex and Sosonic and everything that they do for live music.
Right. So the impetus behind what I'm doing here is, I work on a lot of different styles of music. Sometimes it's tough for people who are assisting me in that, I might be working on music that you hate constantly. If you really only like metal, I might only be working on metal a very small amount of time. If you really only like hip hop, I'm going to be working on like a lot of different stuff. So I do a lot of different stuff in that side of things, but then I also like doing a lot of different stuff outside of just the recording and mixing, because I do a lot of a lot of what I do is produce, engineer, and mix my own projects. So it's like a start to finish type thing. It's less that I like engineer something and then send it out for mix or
you kind of. I mean, I can understand why that's likable though. Like to have it from start to finish rather than just. Well, I don't want him. Who knows what they're going to do with it once I send it off.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't mind it, but like it's weird that I just haven't had that opportunity to have that happen. I've had it happen a couple of times, but so because of that, like I like kind of doing a lot of the different things, and I do also love doing live production as well. And so this, where my studio is part of a bigger umbrella. So the Madtownmixstudio is really the studio side of it, where I can produce bands and mix, and a lot of it is like a lot of what I do is mixing right now. But outside of that, within the building, there's the company. It's owned by Sosonic, which is a live company that has done live production for a lot of years, and they have full-on PA systems to do
PA stages, like
stages and everything. But then there's also an educational component to it too, where there's lessons, there's music lessons, there's like we're gonna do like an educational program for techs, and like training techs and training people into how to run a theater, how to run like a show, how to like set things up properly, like kind of an extension of what was going on at Madison Media Institute. But that doesn't exist anymore. So this is
it's kind of a different animal too. I mean, I definitely don't know the live side of the engineering. I mean, obviously a live drummer, but live side of engineering. And I went to a class at Sweetwater in Indiana. They did a couple day live mixing, and you're learning about drive racks and all these different things like that. I'm just like, what? I never.
Yeah.
But it was really cool. Just because I mean, if you're an audio nerd, you just love continuing your education. And
yeah. There's there's so many things. I mean, one of the things that I've liked doing is like, I like the concept of like flipping back and forth, in that like, with the studio, you have the tendency to do it so much that it's not in real time, and it's like slows you down, like, and then you take forever on a project. You can like work slow, like you can afford to work slowly in the studio, whereas live, it's like all immediate. And so like the live side of it speeds me up in the studio, and the studio side gives me ways of thinking and routing that I can translate into the live world, and maybe get it to sound that little bit better or a little bit louder,
which I'm sure is probably even better for when you're tracking.
Yeah.
I mean, because, I would say it's something that I don't think about all the time. Like, what do they want to hear in their headphones as they're tracking this?
Right.
I mean, if you're used to doing live stuff, then you've got that kind of dialed in already.
Well, and that's something like a great monitor engineer will almost like play the artist. So like if the artist is like too close on the microphone, you can pull you can push more volume into his microphone, and he'll back off. So like if you're,
I see what you mean.
Or if he's not singing close enough to the microphone, you can like pull away a little bit of volume, and now all of a sudden they're gonna sing a little more closely.
Like play the artist.
Yeah.
I like that.
So like you're trying to, like, you can get them to get a better show depending on what you're doing, and like that is an aspect of like really high level monitor people.
Sure.
Will do that.
Sure.
It's not just about like sitting there and like, is this loud enough, and is there feedback,
So when live music gets going again, are you gonna kind of go back to the schedule you had in the past, maybe when you're doing live sound? Or
I mean, it all kind of depends on what happens. I mean, I kind of just do whatever I can I don't know, I can do at the time. I like doing it all. So if I do one thing too often, I start, like if I produce just metal,
Right. You just get bored.
Freak out.
Right.
You know. So I'm not planning on I don't make plans like that yet.
Right.
So.
Yeah. I mean, obviously things come up and it has to work with your schedule or whatnot.
I do like the excitement of the live
for sure
thing.
Maybe it's just because we haven't been to I kind of feel like I have, because when we were here a couple weeks ago with Ellefson and stuff, but like before that, it'd been a little while since I'd seen a live show.
Yeah,
you know,
and we've been doing that. We've been doing streaming.
You've been doing the streams here.
Yeah, so like that was one of the things that's cool is one of the other things that's in the umbrella of the Sosonic thing is we have this thing, Indie Tune Up, that we had a show once a month in the live room that we would have like 3 artists local and they would come and play, and we would have like a little audience, kind of a dinner audience kind of thing, and then we would stream that. And when this happened, I was like, well, this is perfect. We already know we've got the cameras all set up. We've got all the stuff. We can stream this. Like and so we've done a little bit of that where we have a band come in and set it up, and
it was a full on thing though.
Yeah,
I mean, you had with 3 to 4 cameras, you had lights, you had smoke, you had I mean,
we have a video guy,
right.
We have a streaming person, and then lights and everything, and audio mix and everything. So yeah, it's a lot of fun, and that kind of gets me back to the live thing again.
Right. Well, it breaks up the monotony, I guess. I mean, doing a one-off like that, especially having like, Bumblefoot just destroying guitar right in front of you. I mean, how awesome is that? Yeah,
and then like I mean, since this has started, like it was crazy because there was that, like, I remember like kind of the first week of March, it was like all of a sudden, like I had like a full schedule. Like all the way through the summer, and all of a sudden these things are like canceling and dropping off, but ironically it's all kind of taken on, maybe, I don't know if that's the right use of ironic. That's like is it the Alanis Morissette use of ironic?
Whatever,
really
it is,
ironic.
whatever.
No, but interestingly enough, I've had a lot of people send me stuff, and I've done a couple of these like kind of quarantine records that are interesting. Like I did one that was for Liquid Death, Water,
right, yeah.
Which was like it's called Greatest Hates, and it's like all of the nasty comments that people would make on their stuff, and like we made death metal songs out of them.
That's great.
And I did that with,
out of the comments.
Yeah, out of the comments. Did that with this guy Gus Rios, who was in Malevolent Creation. He's in Gruesome. And he's a great drummer. And
by the way, Gus, I'm glad you're recovering from COVID, because he got it pretty bad.
Yeah, he did. He got that like the day after I was with him too. Like that was crazy, because I saw that he got sick, and I was like, man, I was recording vocals with him like the day, like a couple days before that. Like he did that. I mean, he plays everything. He plays guitar, he plays bass,
he's a really talented guy.
He's awesome. And so we did that completely remotely. That was cool. And then I did this other, I've done a couple of projects like this, but like I did this other like fairly I don't know the word, like extravagant project that kind of came was saying similar quarantine kind of thing, where these guys were making their songs on kind of GarageBand, building them out, and then I was like feeding them information or feeding them opinions to like change, get them set and everything like that. And then they would flesh it out, and then they would send me the tracks, and then I would mix them without ever like being in the same room. Right. And that the interesting thing about that project is the whole concept of it. It was like this concept record about video games and music. It's like essentially music written about video games and like old school video games. And the band's named Super Monster Party, and their concept is like kind of like playing like, you know, comic cons and things like that when cons exist again. But like the songs are songs that are written about video games, but
the good ones that we remember from growing up.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like one of like my favorite one, like what we did is I had this concept of you know, your princess is in another castle. Like there's like that line at the end when you get in Mario Brothers, you get the princess and sorry Mario, your princess is
you beat the level. No.
Yeah, that your princess is in another castle.
Right.
And I was like, how that kind of like relates like to like, you know, this girl you think might be the one, but she's not the one. She's in another castle. She looks just like it. And I was like, well, that's a really like poetic thing. So we made this like really dramatic 80s kind of song. And then, you know, we've got your princess is in another castle. So you guys should
you guys will love it. We'll put the link in the show notes.
Check that out. But they've done like a Resident Evil song. There's a Mortal Kombat song. There's Streets of Rage. There's Permadeath. There's, I mean, all kinds of Slaughterhouse. Like, yeah, Castlevania. I mean, it's never ending. And
it's fun.
It's fun because, and you know, we kind of all did it remotely, and the bass player on it, Emilio Martinez, is Yngwie's bass player, and he has a studio, and he was fleshing out these garage band ideas for the singer, and like taking them, and then they would send them to me, and then I would add my bit, and then so it was like this completely you know, internet made like record.
It's kind of like a new way of working that you have to figure out in this climate.
Right. But it was awesome. It worked really well. And yeah, so I'm really like, you know, that's fun. And I don't mind changing the way I work depending on the project. Like I change the way I work for every band I work with, not in a way that like I'm starting from scratch, but like what's appropriate for a metal band is not necessarily appropriate for an indie band, is not necessarily appropriate for like somebody who's like an EDM kind of thing.
Right.
So it's all different.
Yeah. No, you got to approach it kind of definitely individualistic.
Yeah. And like so like with metal, like maybe I'll record the drums last and we'll program all the drums first, make the songs great, and do that. And then build backwards and then record the drums last, because the drums are have the most microphones. And when you have to edit the drums, and like, let's say if I recorded the drums first and there's a kick drum pattern, and that kick drum pattern doesn't line up with the coolest melody that that the singer wrote. Mm-hmm. Now I've got to edit this kick drum pattern, but like I've got like all these microphones, and
you'll never get it out of the overhead.
Yeah. And so, it would have been better if I just recorded the drums at the end. That's, you know, one way of doing it. But like sometimes you want this band in the room feel, and maybe that's important. So let's do it that way. Like I don't care how it is. I'll figure it out.
Or sometimes maybe you start doing it that way, and then they don't sound as good because they're doing it. Maybe they're overthinking it, and you're like, oh shit, well that would solve the problem, but now it's not going to work. So now
and so it's just a matter of like
moving target.
Yeah, guess, but it's finding what's appropriate for the song. Yeah. Like that is to me the most important thing, and it's really the song is the thing that you're working on. Like it doesn't matter how we get there, and that's an interesting thing about.
That's a good point.
Now versus versus the past, you know, and newer records, and the way kids are making records are they're writing riffs and recording them into anything and like demoing them out and chopping them up. And that's how they're writing. Whereas before you were writing in a rehearsal room, you know, in somebody's basement or whatever, and you're in Bob's basement, right? And you're using Bob's PA, and Bob's your rhythm guitar player. And now we got to put Bob's riff in the song. Whereas like, and then everybody's got to learn Bob's riff. Whereas like, you know, if you're writing it in like chopping stuff up, you know, Bob's riff's not good. Bob's riff goes.
Or sometimes, you know, maybe one guitar player is way better at rhythm. He's just going to play all the rhythms.
Yeah, exactly. And, and you know, again, then it becomes much more about the song.
Yeah.
You know, and that is the most important thing. And conceptually, how do we make that song cool? And like, how do we like is what we're singing about? Is there a way to like make that come through in the engineering that we're doing?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think it's putting your producer hat on it's a difficult job because you have to figure out how each individual guy ticks and what makes sense to them, you know, and you know, clash of personalities or a lot of, you know, if people are introverted or whatever. I mean, it's just never the same. Like you just can't have I'm going to go from point A to Z, you know what I mean? Like
there's the psychology aspect of it too.
But I like the concept. I mean, like technology is so good now, you should be able to do your own pre-pro in your basement.
Oh yeah.
And flesh out all your ideas. And there's no excuse because it just takes time now, right? I mean, like, and then you commit it, you know, throw everything at the wall, see what sticks.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's like, I want to bring what I'm good at.
Right.
Like, so if you've got a demo and you've got something that sounds awesome in the demo, I have no problem keeping it. Like, we should use that. Like, why are we going to try to redo that? You know, same thing, like, you know, rather than writing, you know, something completely from scratch, if you've got a song that's like good, we should start with that. It's a better starting point. And that's why I think that's an important thing to like not get so caught up in like this is a demo, or I don't think there's such thing as demos anymore. Like it's just the beginning point of the song. And then we're just making the song better and better and better. And that's the goal. You know?
And they should, you know, hopefully they, you know, gain your trust.
Oh yeah.
You know, and then trust your ears. And when they hear it back and they're like, oh man, yeah, I never thought about layering that part. That sounds sick.
Right.
Like awesome. But of course I'm sure they love your little, you know, I'm sure you got a million stories about like, well, so-and-so did this, and you know, he didn't think it was going to work.
I've got enough stories. I've got enough stories for 30 days. So like my wife knows all of my stories and I just keep repeating them. But for bands, it's great because like I can get you 30 days worth of stories, but then I start repeating them.
Then you gotta
so some of these bands I've worked with for like long periods of time have heard the same story over and over again. But you know, that's okay.
So bands like and people that want to learn more about you and your studio and your work here, what's the best way for them to research you online and contact you?
I'm terrible at social media for one, and I don't have a website. So no, I have a Facebook, Madtownmixstudio. If you want to like contact me,
perfect.
That's a great way. Great way to hit me up. I generally repost or put links on the Facebook of stuff that we've been working on here.
Cool.
That I can share and stuff like that. So that's like a lot of the stuff that I've worked on. That's probably the best way, you know, to get a hold of me at the moment.
Just find Madtownmixstudio on Facebook. I mean, you'll see, I'm sure there's plenty of pictures, plenty of audio examples. Send him a message.
Yep.
You know, link him to what you want help with.
I generally always want to work with everybody. No, I try to work with bands that I like working on developing artists.
Mm-hmm.
I find that working with people on the way up is more fun personally than, you know, really seeking out those like bands that have like, you know, a bunch of records out or whatever.
Right.
Like, and developing each artist to kind of have their own voice and their own style and their own thing, and working with an artist in that capacity. And then, you know, a lot of the times those artists will come back and work
for sure
with me again. So,
but you know, that's one of those things too, where it's like, you know, you're not talking like super expensive all the time, depending on what your project is, of course, right? But sometimes just getting a trusted producer on the, you know, a fresh set of ears to hear your project and interject feedback it's only going to make your song better.
Right.
It's not about changing it.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean,
yeah. Hopefully. I mean, I'm not trying to change things for the sake of changing things, but I do like to get involved, and I look at it as like, for that amount of time I'm a member of the
You're
band.
like the fifth member,
or
whatever.
And I try to keep my rates in that way affordable so that I can work with those types of bands. And I really put the effort into working that way because, there's this concept of like an hourly studio, like I pay, $50 an hour or something like that and come in the studio, and then you run out of budget and your song might not be very good. And generally it's not. Generally that's because that's not the way any of the bands you like listening to work. And so I'm not big on that whole hourly thing. I mean, certain styles of music, like hip hop is a different thing generally for vocals and stuff like that because of the way hip hop is made. But like any kind of band oriented music, I like to put together a budget, and I like to do like all in projects where
consider it just a project. I'm with you there.
We're working till we're done, and within reason. I mean, it's got to be, but I like keeping it so that I can work with the starting out bands, and like stuff like that. So, yeah,
that's pretty badass. Well, I mean, you got a full plate here for sure. I know you said you got this thing all dialed up and running. Didn't you say that you had like another couple, another 8 channels that could actually add on to?
Yeah, I've got 8 more channels of this. I don't have the bucket for it, but yeah, like this is a 40 channel console, and it's got 4 of the stereo strips, so that it's got technically 44 inputs. And the coolest thing about it, or one of the coolest things, is that this is it's upgraded. The center section is from like a G plus console, which this is an E series. There's the E series. But this is
the G in the middle?
Well, so yeah, there's the E series, the G series, and then the G plus. And then the G plus is the last version that essentially they made of the SSL 4000 kind of series. Then they went to the 9000s and the Js. But the G plus is what everybody likes, is like for the monitor section and the center section. So this has that. But then I have I have like 16 G channels here. And then I have the rest are E channels. And I have like a mix of like the different types of EQs.
Sure.
And then I have the stereo channels. So it's nice. It's a small SSL, but it's got enough channels that I can do what I need, and it's great. I like it for tracking because I can combine my signals together.
Sure.
That's one of the things. I've worked in a bunch of studios. Like before I had this in the studio, I would travel and go to different studios.
Right.
And it's amazing how you go to these studios now and they have the console, they have an 8000 or they have a big SSL. And the assistants don't know how to use it because they don't use it. They never, everybody's like putting two faders up and running Pro Tools through it, or they're like patching around it, and they know how to like patch a mic into Pro Tools directly, and that's about it. And I like to combine my mics and make decisions on the way in and EQ the kick on the way in. Like, I'm not going to record just a straight.
Yeah, that's really interesting too, because a lot of the big guys that I've seen mixing in Pro Tools, when they have access to something like this, the sessions in Pro Tools are so clean because they've done a lot of that work on the way in.
Yes,
like the gain staging, the EQ, the
compression. I try to do all of that on the way in.
Yeah.
In fact, I try to keep my faders almost all at 0. Like that's like, I mean, right now you can see this is a mix I was working on, and like almost all the faders are right kind of in a line almost. I mean, they're a little bit different, but like.
So you just trim the input gain of the channel down or whatever, right?
No, generally I've made the decision as I've recorded it. So like I recorded it so that when it lines up in the end, it's all lining up at 0.
Gotcha.
And with some correction. So I'm always shooting for 0. Like, I feel like the console works the best when it's kind of in that range. I feel like the volume of the tracks work the best. stuff not saturating and stuff like that. I think that works really well. So anyways, that's
certainly an impressive piece of gear, that's for sure.
yeah. Awesome.
And I'm glad you know the innards of it so well.
Oh, yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, there's definitely, it's definitely become, I've learned a lot from in the last
getting under the hood, so to speak.
Yeah, I've
right?
had it for a year, and I'm still learning a lot about it. I smoked the center section already once, and like I had to fix that, and that was there's nothing like seeing smoke pouring out of your
God, yeah, no,
out of a big investment. But the good thing about it is that the smoke comes from, like, they have like these tiny low resistance resistors, 10 ohm resistors that they use as fuses.
All right.
So if something happens, they're burning up.
That craps out, but you can replace that.
Right, and it just breaks so you just replace all those 10 ohm resistors.
Wow.
But that's what smokes. It wasn't like I burned anything else. It was just really just
it's still scary.
Resistors. But yeah. Luckily there was a tech that had teched the board when it was at MMI, and he was like super chill about it, and he was like, "Oh, don't worry about it. I've seen that happen. It's like no big deal." I was freaking out.
I would be too, man. I mean,
I'd ruined
how
everything.
expensive these things are.
Yeah. So
how old do you think this is?
I know this is a 92.
Oh wow. Okay.
But parts of it are not. Parts of it have to be older. Like all of my E series stuff probably's got to be like closer to like 86, I'm thinking. Just judging by, or 87, it looks like, just judging by like the stickers that are on it.
Okay.
And like the approvals. But like the first 16 channels I think are from 92.
Nice.
And the whole center section's from 92.
Oh wow.
So this is actually one of the later models of this board, which is nice as well because the kinks had been worked out.
Oh, for sure. Right? You hear a lot about the E series and the G series, and it's cool that you explained the difference between both.
Yeah. The E series has, from what I understand, the compressor's slightly different. The EQ is generally there's 3 different cards, or maybe 4 different cards that you can get for the EQ, and a lot of G consoles have a G series EQ, which is different, but you can have G channel strips. This is where it gets confusing. You can have G channel strips with E series EQ, like what I have.
That you have there, yeah.
Because these are the brown EQs. You can get them with. There's a black EQ, a brown EQ.
Like these.
Yeah, yep. I've got a couple more black EQs. So there's the blacks, the brown EQs, and then there's actually one that's like an orange EQ that's like supposed to be kind of like a Pultec style that not a lot of people like very much. And then there's like the G series one, which has like kind of pastel colors. Like they've got like a magenta color.
Yeah.
And if you look at the Waves one, there's actually the G series EQ.
That's what I thought of when you said that.
So they're all slightly different. But yeah.
That's the standard for the master bus compressor. I mean, I'm only using the in the box version, but
right. What's your favorite in the box version of it?
I'm partial to the UA stuff. I mean, I like the like this. Boy, I have the Waves version's good. I mean, I've used that forever, and I have really had no problems with it. But until I started using, I don't know, still buying some of the UA stuff, like the distressors are really good.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can just hear, after so many years, I can just hear a little tiny, just more analog from the plugin than what I was used to. But
yeah. I've always felt I think the Waves one. Yeah, I'm not gonna.
Well, I like it just bumping the needle just a little bit on the master bus,
I like a lot of, I use this all the time.
Yeah.
I'm always patching into the bus compressor on this. But the plugins.
Well, not like the plugin would compare to something like that, but you know, everyone knows or has heard the Ssl Bus Compressor, and they know what that means. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah, it's interesting what the bus compressor does. So like, it actually kind of like brings in the stereo image, which is weird. But the SSL, because of like the way they use a lot of like DC blocking caps in it, which there's a lot of capacitors in the audio path, which tends to cause like phase shifting.
oh, okay.
So the console has this quality that it's very wide sounding, and the SSL and the bus compressor can kind of bring that in.
Yeah.
But I've noticed that in the box, I'm always like fighting for more width.
Ah, okay.
You know,
sure.
So sometimes like putting the bus compressor to collapse that is like kind of the opposite of what you want to do. So you know, and I think that was some of the impetus behind some of the updated bus compressor rack mount units, like the
sure.
Allen Smart thing, where you can do a multi-mono mode.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Like where the left and right aren't chained together, which causes it to sound wider. So I don't know. Yeah, interesting. Anyways,
so besides this, any other favorite analog pieces that you just use all the time?
I mean, I got lucky. I bought a pair of Neve Neve channel strips before they got to be unobtainium priced. And on top of that, they were listed on eBay. It was very unclear whether it was one channel or two channels.
Oh yeah.
And so I just took a guess, or I just took a chance that it was only going to be one channel, but it was two. And so these are really great. These are like essentially, they're essentially like the 1066 modules, which is what the 1073 is, but it's got a different high shelf on it, and it's got slightly different EQ points. And so I
you use that on anything like vocals,
pretty
guitar,
much
or whatever?
that's everything. Yeah, I use those a lot. I have API. I have old API ones as well in a rack. I have a CL1B for vocals that I use as like my vocal compressor.
Cool.
I use that as like on bass and lots of stuff. You know, I have the distressors and stuff like that. I've got like I've got some more. I've got a bunch of API. I've got some of these like,
you got the lunchbox over there, right?
These Hairball Lola preamps. I make a lot of gear. I make a lot of
microphones. Oh, do you? I didn't know that.
Yeah, so like a lot, like some of my gear I make myself. I mean, they're kits. I mean, not like design,
put them together.
But like the microphones, one of the, like the microphone I have like a very specific capsule in it. I've like, it's got two tubes in it, very specific transformer, and all of those are like from older microphones to make this kind of like monster microphone.
Man. Yeah. Hey, that might be a future episode we can.
I like all kinds of gear. Like doing all kinds of weird stuff like that. And yeah.
How about your echo chamber?
Yeah.
Can we talk about that before we go?
Yeah. So one of the things in this building, there's a room that we have that's like equal size to my live room, but it's completely untreated in that it doesn't have like carpeting or flooring really. And so it's very ambient. And so I'll put speakers in there and microphones, and I use that as an echo chamber, which is, you know, in the same way that they do the chambers in like Capitol Studios or whatever, or Sunset. So it's cool because I can use it as a send off of my console. I can plug effects. I can send plugins. So like I can take the signal, I can put delay or EQ on it, and then send that into the chamber, and then come back and then treat that. So what I found is it has a very natural, there's something different about real stuff.
Like a real, instead of like just some random plate reverb.
Yeah, well, even plate sound great. Yeah. Like, but there's something different about a real plate versus the plug-in.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if it's like necessary to make your song better. I don't necessarily think that, but it does sound, there is something about it that is different. And so anything I can do to bring more air or humanity or like real to a production. And that was something like,
Do you use it like a lot?
yeah.
Pretty much like almost everything.
And I mean, we have like, I have like, sometimes I have like a tape delay here, like one of those like rolling tape echoes. And that thing sounds, but more importantly, it has knobs, and I will mess with the knobs and change things as I'm recording it into Pro Tools. And just that creates this movement in the song.
Cool.
And then like, anything I can do to add, realness or movement
right
into the song. I love
That's cool. And you have the capacity to do that here. Which
totally.
Which is great.
And like, this is a total playground.
Like snare drum.
Yeah.
Into a plate like that, in the chamber.
One of the projects I'm mixing now, the drums didn't have a room mic really on, like a big room mic. So I just took the snare and, sent it out to the chamber. And then, now I have a real room. And sometimes I pump the whole, all of the drums in. And then that gives me a room sound that's different from, what I would get by putting reverb on that channel.
Certainly, yeah.
So I'm just looking, anything I can do. Like I've run stuff through cassette tapes before, like multiple times to try to like get it to sound differently. Any whatever it takes. Like I just want to make things sound more interesting in that way.
Well, man, I know you're a busy man. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. No, I mean, this is one of many future things, hopefully, collaboration-wise.
Sure.
But
yeah,
I love talking about this stuff with you. You're very knowledgeable and always willing to share.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
The things you've learned along the way and stuff. So I'll put a link right in the show notes for all of Matt's information about his studio work. And then the stuff going on here with Sosonic, so you can keep up to date with what he's got going on. But yeah, look at him if you're looking to take your project to the next level. I mean, it's always good to have a good pair of ears.
Yeah.
That has been around the block a lot and worked with a lot of artists too. It doesn't necessarily have to break the bank either. But glad you're healthy and safe, and we're all trying to do this social distance thing. But thanks, man. I appreciate the look around and
awesome.
all that stuff. And we'll talk soon.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right.
Right on.